Africa, Conscious Threads. It's happening on Sunday, June 1st, and we are making sure that you have a taste of the fashion extravaganza that it's going to be. It's, of course, presented by the Emancipation Support Committee of Trinidad and Tobago. So joining us on the now via Zoom, we have Zakiya Uzoma Wadada, the Executive Director for the Emancipation Support Committee of Trinidad and Tobago. And we, of course, will also be joined by Richard Young, the producer of this extravaganza, who will be in studio. But first, good morning, Zakiya, and welcome to the Now.
Hi, Ayinka. Good morning, sweetheart. How are you?
I am thrilled that we are seeing another version of Ewa Afrika, the 2025 version, that is. And I'm wondering what conscious threads means, Zakiya, jumping straight into the conversation.
Right. You know, a long time we used to talk about threads. You know, I don't know if you know that time. You know, there was a time when we referred to our clothes as threads. You know, how your threads. Yeah, you're right. You know, threads. So this year we begin the second decade, United Nations, second international decade for people of African descent. Okay. And you know, the issue of reparations and so on is very much part of the global conversation. So our theme, the theme for emancipation this year, is shaping sustainable futures through reparatory justice. So we thought that a fashion show should also reflect these concerns that we have with respect to reparatory justice, and also that awareness of the importance of the second decade and why we need to have such a decade. So it's really about consciousness. And we are saying being aware, understanding what's happening around us, particularly with respect to the African population worldwide. So we said, Ewa Afrika, this year we will talk about conscious threads, you know, and how we can weave, you know, through fashion, that awareness and reflect also through the fashion, that awareness of the fact that we are in the second decade, that reparations is extremely important as part of the experience of Africans at this time. And therefore, it is really about consciousness. And so, since we are in fashion, we have conscious threads. So, threads is also like about weaving, but it is also about the fact that we used to also refer to our clothes as threads as well, you know. So we bring into the designers, yes. Yes, so the designers themselves, you know, even in producing their garments, they have that sense of awareness, you know. How can they use their designs to also tell a story, to also make sure that these issues of which we are concerned also emanates from the fashion event.
Now, I imagine with the fashion part of things, there are visual stories that we can tell. But when we talk about something as complex as repatriation and giving back altogether, there are a number of ways that we could do that. So will we be seeing sustainability being part of the conversation as well, or even hearing audio that gives us actual words to that effect? How are we really getting this message across fashionably?
Well, you know, indeed, actually, we had a conversation with some of our designers and some people as part of the prelude to the show last week. And this conversation took place on the stage in Queen's Hall. And there were quite some young people, students, and so on. And that was exactly the conversation, Ayinka, sustainability and fashion. And it was absolutely amazing because we heard stories from some of our very renowned designers talking about their own experience and all the different ways in which sustainability was determined, you know, both in how they would have produced their garments, both in terms of the sustainability of methodology, you know, even as things change, how do we go back to some of those original, you know, ways in which we would have done things, even in the presence of AI? Sustainability based on the fact that so many of us as artists, and I'm saying us as artists because I too was a fabric designer years ago, as artists, we sustain these arts and cultures and talents through our ancestors who tend to sort of guide us as artists, because a lot of artists will talk about art coming through them and not from them, because based on, either ancestral, divine energy connecting with them and so on. So we had a really very interesting conversation about sustainability. And according to you, the important thing is, how do we tell those stories? Because a lot of us, we see a designer, we see Lisa Faye, she has some beautiful silks and so on, but we don't know her story. And when she tells her story, then we are able to see the sustainability, the consciousness, the connection with your culture, connection with ancestors, all as being part of what she eventually produces.
So the connection could be as thin as a thread, but we're going to see it translate when Richard gets his hands into things, because you are directing this production. So I know we're going to have all of that sustainability continue through the actual selection. But tell me about the production itself, because Ewa is something that we do more than, well, you've done before. Each year finding a new theme to embody. So tell me how that conversation translated to the actual stage performance then.
Well, the whole thing about doing things in a non-traditional way is the way that we are disruptive and we are progressive. And that's part of the resistance and rebellion that I think that the reparatory justice that is embedded in the theme for Emancipation this year is how I am going to be using it. So that's why we had this conversation on stage. So it was beautiful to see people being invited onto the stage through the backstage. So the Queen's Hall staff say, welcome to our backstage. So you're seeing the belly of it. And that is what we came to speak about when we were on stage, how people find it within themselves to consciously be connected, as our graphic shows. These threads are ancestral threads that are running through our veins and our DNA. And in that way, we are still doing resistance work and still doing rebellious work in terms of how we have been colonized to think. We are anti that by coming up with new ways of costuming ourselves. And that is what I think we are weaving truths and shaping our futures in style. That's what I have put as the subtitle, to keep connected to the Emancipation Support Committee's mantra for this year. So all the designers are using artisanal practice, because we are slow fashion people. We are not the fast fashion people. We are artisanal and we are promoting slow fashion. So what we do is surface treat the fabrics and textiles to make our identity be felt through that. So people are doing things like applique and collage art and hand painted and batik and tie-dye and lino blocks and silk screen. It's practices on the fabric that gives it a new identity, and that identity is a Caribbean identity and an essentially Afro-Caribbean identity. So that's what excites me about how I'm going to craft the story. And Obeah Jackson and Conrad Paris are my griots, as it were, and they tell the story beautifully. So yes, the thought of the sustainability will be heard, felt by the choice of music, by the movement on stage, by bringing together performing artists who are going to add their flavor to this exciting installation. And over the years we had these beautiful themes, Nubian Renaissance, Sankofa style, folklore, and this year conscious threads, bringing that consciousness about what you have to add to the template instead of just being a bandwagonist and making clothes for the sake of clothes.
I really like the term slow fashion. I feel like you've almost coined it. I've never heard it.
That's the term.
It's exactly what we do. We literally make things that you will wear for decades because they're durable, they're well made, and they feature, as you say, the actual visuals that we can see, whether it be the texture or the imprints. Now we're seeing some visuals here, so I know
that was from last year's show.
Right. I know some of the artists that will be featured, and I say artists because that's what it is. But tell me, who are the designers we can look forward to in this edition?
Host of designers. Well, the lead designers like Zadan Eastman, the cloth, Dominic LaRoche Designs. We have newer ones like Elizabeth Lucas. We have Mark Eastman, who is a menswear designer. We have a new one like Ebony Rose. We have BU, which is a new one called BU Apparel. There are tons of them. It's over 12 designers who are making up this thing. In fact, it's about 20. And we get a story told. They're interspliced with wonderful talent that is relevant and appropriate and related to the storytelling of conscious threads.
Now, the times I have here is 4 p.m. for the prelude, and then the presentation is at 5. So runway 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock is the runway. At 4 o'clock you come and you browse through an artisanal market. You go into the show. After the show you come out and you meet all the designers with their garments on racks. So you actually interface. So we're promoting B2B and B2C, as they call it in the business, direct trade.
So we could shop. I love this for us. Zakiya, before we wrap things up, I want to come back to you a little bit just because the powerful messages that are going to be shared through fabric, through threads, will certainly resonate with people here in Tobago. I'm wondering if they will be available online for the region to also participate as we share that common thread of that African ancestry. Will that be something as an option?
Well, fortunately, with the collaboration and partnership of our #1 station, TTT, we always are able to have the film, because it's not, the show is videotaped. And once that is done, we normally hand it over to TTT, which gives us the opportunity to have it filmed, via not only locally, but your YouTube. And we also are able to send the video to some of the other television stations and so on online stations in the region. So we normally do a video of it, and then it is shared, particularly in the height of the Emancipation period.
So perfect. We are going to live vicariously if we don't get the fabrics and therefore be able to be a part of Ewa Afrika Conscious Threads this year around. Thank you so much for joining us and for making it happen. Both you, Zakiya, and you, Richard. We appreciate you all tremendously. You guys can be a part of it. Of course, you can get your tickets at the box office. And because we have the flyers, we're going to share the information. But for now, we've got more that you want to stick around for here on the Now Morning Show. We'll be back.